Welcome to the English Grammar Assistant channel.
Lesson 4. Adverb clauses and their reduction methods.
The building block of the English sentence is called clause. There are two clause types.
The main clause, also called the independent clause. The subordinate clause, also called the dependent clause.
The main clause consists primarily of subject and verb as main parts, and it can be formed according to one of the 17 different configurations we described in the previous video. It must also express a complete idea. The subordinate clause, like the main clause, mainly consists of subject and verb, and can be formed according to one of the configurations we described in the last video. However, it doesn't express a complete idea, and can't stand alone as a complete sentence. Therefore, it must be connected to a main clause in the sentence. The complex English sentence consists of a main clause connected to a subordinate clause through a connector, also called marker.
For example, the players played well in the match, although it was raining heavily. This is a complex sentence because it contains two clauses, one main or independent, and another subordinate or dependent. Each of the two clauses has its subject and verb, and this is the way with which we distinguish a complex sentence from a simple sentence which only contains one subject and one main verb. The main clauses, the players played well in the match. The subordinate clauses, it was raining heavily. The two clauses are connected through the connector, although.
There are three types of subordinate clauses. The adjective clause, the adverb clause, which is the subject of this video, and the noun clause. The adverb clause is used to serve some useful purpose in the sentence in relation to the main clause, such as time, connection, contrast, condition, contradiction, justification. It comes either after or before the main clause. The connectors of adverb clauses are named subordinating conjunctions. Time connection.
For example, I always fasten the seat belt when I drive. When I drive here is the adverb clause, and it relates to the main clause in time. The connector of this adverb clause is when.
Another example. I listen to music while I study. While I study here is the adverb clause, and it relates to the main clause in time. The connector of this adverb clause is while.
Contrast.
For example, I like detective movies, whereas my sister likes comedy ones. Whereas my sister likes comedy ones, here is the adverb clause. It acts as a contrast to the main clause. The connector of this adverb clause is whereas.
Condition.
For example, if I arrive in the city early, I will drop by. If I arrive in the city early, here is the adverb clause. It acts as a condition for the main clause to happen. The connector of this adverb clause is if.
Contradiction.
For example, although she was tutored in mathematics, she didn't soccer high. Although she was tutored in mathematics, here is the adverb clause. It acts as a contradiction to the main clause. The connector of this adverb clause is although.
Justification.
For example, I couldn't sleep well last night because I drank too much coffee. Because I drank too much coffee, here is the adverb clause. It acts as a justification for the main clause. The connector of this adverb clause is because.
Connectors of adverb clauses.
Time connectors.
When, while, after, before, once, until, as, and whenever.
Cause connectors.
Because, as, for, and since.
Contrast connectors.
Whereas, while, and whilst.
Contradiction connectors.
Although, even though, in spite of the fact, while.
Condition connectors.
If, unless, in case.
Other connectors.
As long as, even if, even though, in order that, wherever, however.
How the adverb clauses are reduced. The adverb clauses are reduced the same way the adjective clauses are done, with slight difference.
When the verb of the adverb clause is in the active mode, we keep the connector, eliminate the subject, plus helping verbs, and add ing to the present form of the verb.
When the verb of the adverb clause is in the passive mode, we keep the connector, eliminate the subject, plus helping verbs, and keep the verb form as it is in its past participle form.
For example, because I had too much work to finish, I skipped the dinner with my family. In order to reduce the adverb clause in this sentence, we eliminate the connector, because, and the subject I, and change the verb's form to the present participle, the base form, plus ing.
So, the new sentence becomes like this: having too much work to finish, I skipped the dinner with my family.
Note, in the case of the connector, because, it must be eliminated, because it can't be followed by a noun or participle.
Another example. Although the machine was maintained not long ago, it broke down again. In order to reduce the adverb clause in this sentence, we keep the connector although, eliminate the subject, the machine, and the helping verb, was, and keep the verb in its past participle form.
So, the new sentence becomes like this: although maintained not long ago, the machine broke down again.
As a condition, to be able to reduce the adverb clause, the subjects of both the main clause and the adverb clause must be one agent for both clauses.
For example, while I was shopping, a beautiful dress caught my eye. The adverb clause in this sentence can't be reduced, because the subject of the adverb clause is different from the subject of the main clause. If we reduced it, for example, the sentence would be like this: while shopping, a beautiful dress caught my eye. This will mean that the beautiful dress is the one who was shopping, which is wrong.
When the main verb of the adverb clause is a form of verb to be, it's often removed. However, with certain connectors, like because, it's retained and changed to the present participle.
For example, because Cuscos he is rich in historical places, it attracts millions of tourists yearly. The reduced form of this sentence is going to be like this. Being rich in historical places, Cusco City attracts millions of tourists yearly. Another example. If it is cloudy and windy, it is going to rain. The reduced form of this sentence is going to be like this. If cloudy and windy, it is going to rain.
Not all adverb clauses can be reduced. Of adverb clauses that can be reduced are the adverb clauses of time connection, contradiction, justification, and condition. The connectors of the adverb clauses are often kept for clarity of the relation between the adverb clause and main clause. However, in the case of time connectors, they are usually eliminated. In the case of eliminating the connector of time, if the action of the adverb clause happens before the action of the main clause, we must use the perfect participle, having plus the past participle.
Let's contrast these two reduced sentences to understand the point. The first sentence says, watching the movie, I slept. The second sentence says, having watched the movie, I slept. The first sentence implies that he or she slept while he or she was watching the movie. The second sentence implies that he or she slept after he or she finished watching the movie. Therefore, present participle in a sentence always indicates that the action of the adverb clause happens, or happened at the same time, or during the action of the main clause, whereas perfect participle always indicates that the action of the adverb clause happens, or happened before the action of the main clause.
The adverb clause can come after or before the main clause. When it comes before the main clause, a comma is used to separate the two clauses. However, in the case of condition, contradiction, and contrast adverb clause, there is always a comma to separate it from the main clause, whether it comes before or after the main clause. If this video was beneficial to you, please like, comment, and subscribe if interested to receive more material.